Good evening. Today we are going to look at chapter 27. And in chapter 27, we find Rukmani and Nadan back at the temple. And in the previous chapter, we found the way Rukmani and Nadan went to a collector's place in search of their son Murugan. And there they realized that Murugan has left the place. He has deserted his own family. And his wife is there in one of the godowns. And his wife has 2 children. And they also learned that the youngest child is not Murugan's. And realizing that they are not welcomed at Ammu's place. And of course, they realize Ammu is very poor. And then she cannot keep them. And besides, she is not a friendly person. So they decide to return to the temple. But they know that now they have to go back to their village. So back at the temple, 1 or 2 of the regulars in the temple recognized us. What, you back again? Trouble with your daughter-in-law, no doubt. No, no trouble, all is well. And this is something expected. So this is a situation that happens over and over again. So they thought that they guessed that this may be why they have come back to the temple. No, no trouble, all is well. Some sniggered knowingly. Sniggering is laughing in a sarcastic way. Knowingly, others were sympathetic. Well, things often turn out unexpectedly. Perhaps your luck will change soon. A few were antagonistic and openly so. Like Ammu, they saw their share of the food shrinking with each additional mouth. Outsiders should not be allowed, they grumbled. Are there not enough destitute in this city without the whole of India flocking in? Right. So you can write here different reactions to their return. They come back to the temple, and this is the way others at the temple reacted to their arrival. Some sniggering, that is laughing in an unkindly manner, mocking manner. And then there are some others who are more humane than others, sympathetic. And some aren't like that. They are enemy like. They openly showed their dislike towards their coming back to the temple. They didn't even want to hide their attitude towards the strangers. Maybe because they too are caught in the survival struggle. And when there are more people in the temple, so the amount of food they receive, they know that will be limited. So they saw their share of the food shrinking with each additional mouth. So that is their selfishness. And once again, we can see in the novel how poverty degrades human beings and they have lost their human qualities. Human qualities like positive human qualities like caring, sharing, understanding, concern, and some aren't like that. Perhaps they are forced to be like this by their circumstances. So they are even complaining. Are there not enough destitute in this city? The destitutes are very poor people, beggar like people, without the whole of India flocking in. So their resentment towards the strangers is recorded in this expression. We looked at them resentfully. Were we not as hungry as they? Soon we were looking at newcomers with a fearful eye, wondering with each fresh arrival how much less there would be. Right? So that is due to their poverty and hunger, starvation. They don't have positive attitudes towards other suffering fellow human beings. And in the next paragraph, we find struggle for food. And this is the way Rukmani described the struggle for food. Each night was a struggle, more fierce now that we were daily engaged in it. I saw night after night what I had not observed before. The lame with their crutches knocked away from them so that they fell and were unable to rise. The feeble separated from their supporters so that their numbers were halved. Many a time, my husband stood aside, unable to face the fray. If I had not reproached him, his distaste of the whole procedure would have led him to starvation, as it was more often than not one meal sufficed for two. So that is a struggle for food. And inhumanity hidden inside people comes out in this struggle. And they don't even have sympathy for feeble people, weak people, and handicapped people like lame people. And there are old people, sick ones, but stronger ones never show sympathy towards them because they are caught in that struggle, struggle for food. So the weak people and then handicapped people, they in the struggle, they fell out of the circle and then they were unable to rise and join the line. Okay, right. Let's move on. When the crowd had dispersed to sleep, to beg, to scavenge, in the cool of the night and early dawn, we sat in the quiet courtyards. Or leaned our backs against the pillars in the paved corridors, making our plans and thinking, always thinking. With each passing day, the longing for the land grew. Our plans are forged against a background of brown earth and green fields. and the ripe rustling paddy, not curiously as they were, but as we had first known them, fresh, open, unspoiled, with their delicate scents and sounds untainted, with the skies clear above them and the birds finding sanctuary amid the grasses, and at the same time keeping pace with these longings. Our distaste for the city grew and became a sweeping, pervading hatred. So they are yearning to return. You can write there, yearning to return to the village and to the area they are used to and to the profession that they always did, and their hatred for the city, their distaste, and finally it became a sweeping, pervading hatred. Better to starve where we were bred than live here, Nathan said passionately. Whatever happens, whatever awaits us, we must return. So there is a very strong determination to return to the village. And Nathan even came to a point that it's better to starve in the village than live here. And they need at least, they eat daily, perhaps not enough, but still they survive. But now he came to a point that he feels that it's better to starve in the place where they were born, where they really belong to. So he decided that at whatever cost, they should return. And these are the practical issues. But how? We have no money. To go back to the village, they should have some money, right, to pay for the carter, right, and for other expenses, they should have some money. But now they are penniless. We have no money. And then Nathan can do something, but what he is able to do is useless in the city. So he cannot use his skills as a farmer in the city. My husband can till and sow and reap with skill, but here there is no land. So Nathan is useless in the city because this is the only thing he is able to do. And we know he is an excellent farmer. And once Selvam also observed that, in his father's hands, how the plants thrive. But then when he tries to do it, plants wither in his hands. So Nathan seems to be a farmer with a green thumb or green fingers. And he knows how to do it so well, how to grow paddy, and he's well versed in all farming activities. But all his talents are useless in the city because there is no land available in the city. Then Rukmani also is able to do certain things like weaving, spinning, and then weaving mats also. But the problem is there is no money for spindle, cotton or fiber. To engage in these things, weaving or spinning, she needs to buy the things, necessary things like spindle, cotton, fiber, but there is no money to buy these things. So, where shall a man turn who has no money? Where can he go? So, we find several rhetorical questions and they have no answers. And also, it is quite clear that without money, it's impossible to survive in the city. Where shall a man turn who has no money? Where can he go? Wide, wide world, but as narrow as the coins in your hand. Right? So, your coins, in other words, money limits your opportunities. If you don't have many coins in your hand, that means that you can't do much. So, like a tethered goat is a goat tied to a pole, tied to a pole with a rope. So the goat cannot get away because it is tied to the pole. Pole means stick. So far and no farther. Only money can make the rope stretch. Only money. Right. So this emphasizes power of money. And this is a commercialized society, money-based society or money-based economy. So without money, a person cannot survive in the city. You may be able to survive to a certain extent, but it does not give you much, like many opportunities, or not. It doesn't give you much freedom, right? So you are that a person without money is compared to a goat tied to a pole. So the goat cannot wander far. Similarly, if you don't have money, so you can't do much. So this is actually metaphorical. And also, once again, we find how they are in a checkmate situation. They are in a deadlock because they don't have money, and then money provides you mobility, right? Social upward mobility also provided by money, but without money, right, nothing is possible. So then let's move on. Then one day I thought I would set myself up as a reader of letters such as there are in most villages and surely also in cities. You can mark this. One day I thought I would set myself as a reader of letters. Whoever heard of a woman reader, said Nathan, no one will come to you. Whoever heard of a woman reader? Right, a woman reader is not a stereotype, because in this society we find the position of the female, and the female is supposed to be confined to the house and look after children and caring for the family, cooking and helping her husband and gardening. Those were the things usually females do in that society. And then reading and writing female is a rarity. So Nathan voices that opinion in society. Whoever heard of a woman reader, not a man reader, but woman reader. So those are patriarchal ideas. And then woman reader is a rarity and not a stereotypical female. So woman reader is an empowered female, a female with independence, a female with power. If I ask little and less than the others, custom there will surely be, said I. In any case, one must try. Even a few annas would help. So this is optimism of Rukmani. One must try, even a few annas would help. Rukmani's courage, determination, optimism. Do you think you could? Nadan was half despondent, half eager, and somehow the eagerness alone communicated itself to me. Yes, I'm sure. And she replied in a firm tone, I'm sure. If I write letters as well as read them, I shall learn even more. How can you write without papering? Who asks must provide. I said confidently. Leave it to me. Right. So there we find, how the female has taken the lead, and she has become the decision maker. And the man is actually here, Nadan. Nadan cannot suggest anything, and he only sees obstacles. To him, this idea won't work. But Rukmani is very positive about it, and she thinks that she will succeed. So leave it to me. Right, so that is a courage of the female. We looked at each other and hope stirred, albeit cautiously, that is, although cautiously, making us cheerful. We shall need about 10 rupees, Nadan said, for our food on the way, and to pay the carter, say 2 rupees more in case we are 3 days traveling. And Nadan too is now motivated, and he started to calculate the amount of money they need to go back to the village. He says that they need about 10 rupees, perhaps a little 2 rupees more. 8 letters a day at an anna each, I said. Say half that for rice each day. We made our calculations, crushing optimism whenever it arose so that we might be certain, absolutely certain. And at last we said to each other, soon we shall be back. You can mark this. Right, so once again, a new hope emerges. Soon we shall be back. Right, so in this section, yeah, displays. So notice how Rukmani acts in this situation and the obstacles they have to face, and how she thought, and of course that checkmate situation. They are in a deadlock, trapped in the city, yearning to go back but unable to go because they don't have money to go back. And then how Rukmani thought of a way out, a suggestion, a kind of solution, and it is a practical one as well. And then how a new hope started to emerge, and then how Nadan was conscious of uh, obstacles in this project, not having ink, and then writing equipment, paper, things like that. Right, and then Rukmani has an answer. She has a solution to these questions. So we find how courageous Rukmani is. Now it is not a man, who is taking decisions, and who is leading the family, and who is trying to earn for the family, but the female. Okay, move on to the next section. All that day and many following, I sat by the side of the road leading to the bazaar. Indian word bazaar, calling to those who passed. And you know the meaning, marketplace, crowded marketplace in a country like India. Calling to those who passed, adding to the general clamor. Men hurrying by stopped to stare inquisitively before moving on. So this is not a familiar sight because men stopped to stare inquisitively. Idlers stood or sat around lazily, indulging their curiosity. And there are some curious bystanders. Youths sauntered by insolent of eye and manner, speaking loudly and with exaggerated clearness to each other that I might hear. Says she can read. These village folk are sadly getting above themselves. So, this is the condescending attitude of the city people towards villagers. So, they are looking down upon the villagers like Godea. And they even say that these village folks are sadly getting above themselves. Says she can read. And this is something, they can't even believe. She says she can read. Unbelievable. Maybe mainly because the person is a she, not a he. Can read. So educational opportunities are not available for the female. Right. And then by being able to read, and she places herself a cut above them, illiterate people. She's a writer as well. What do you suppose she writes with? Probably uses whispers and laughs. Oh, come away, she's past all that. She must be mad to imagine. Right. So Rukmani is unfortunately within hearing distance. And then she is openly ridiculed by others. She's been laughed at, looked down upon, and then they made indecent remarks. And then she was able to hear all these things. But still, she did not want to give this up. That is a perseverance. You can write there perseverance. Rukmani's perseverance. Perseverance is continue to do something despite difficulties. There may be difficulties, there may be obstacles, but still one continues to do something despite all these obstacles, difficulties. Grimly, I took no notice and went on with my cries. And also, I think you can see the strength of Rukmani's character. She is a female, but still, she is a very strong female. I took no notice. She maintained her mental integrity. That she did not break down and she did not cry, she did not give it up, but took no notice and went on with my cries. Right. So by the end of the day, she was exhausted, voice was hoarse, mouth tasted of the dust that each passing pair of feet raised. My hair was full of it. I had earned 2 annas, and I spent it on a rice cake for us to eat in the morning. Right. So it was not easy, but still she was able to earn only 2 annas. That too is something. It's better than nothing. And they had to spend some money for their food, and temple gives them food only at night. But morning and noon meals they have to buy. So that time passed. So in this section we find the record of the passage of time. 1 year ended, a new one began. So we find that is especially noticeable in the flowers. And devotees, they offered a certain kind of flowers, right? Worshippers at the temple brought garlands of jasmine instead of chrysanthemums, right? So this is the season of jasmine, not the season of chrysanthemums. And roses had disappeared from the feet of the gods, so that is not the season of roses. Still we stayed on in the city. So other things change, they can't change, right? So they had to stay in the city because still they haven't collected enough money for their travel fare. So next we find how Nadan's health failed. He started to be sick, and whether from its fumes. Fumes means polluted air in the city, or from the blighting of our hopes. My husband began to suffer again from rheumatism, and also he started to have fever again. All bouts of fever began. Over and over again, I told myself we must go from here, especially at night when my husband lay beside me, twisting and straining in his sleep. It seemed to be the one hope for him. And I would look at the yellow flare burning from the top of the temple and at the carven gods, vigilant about us, and only one prayer did I utter. So you can write there, they yearn to go back. They yearn to go back. Right. So look at the next episode in this chapter. So one day Rukmani was returning to the temple after doing her job as a reader and writer of letters. So she was hurrying back because she knows that she should be in the temple in time for the meal. And she heard the footsteps of someone running after her, and the person was shouting something. And then Rukmani stopped at last and then saw a boy following her. And the boy who had come up panting, he had been running, and it was evening. And Rukmani was unable to recognize a boy. And at once the boy started to accuse her of pretending. Do not pretend you do not know me. Ampuli, I have come for my payment. So I think as readers of the novel, you can remember who Puli is, and his act of favor to the couple, stranded couple. And Puli is the one uh, who gave uh, who gave them the right directions to find Dr. Birla's house. So they have been going here and there to find Dr. Birla's house. But Puli is, though he is a very small boy, and he took them to Dr. Birla's house. And then they said that they didn't have money to pay him when he demanded payment. But then he said it was okay, and when you have money, you can give me. And then now he has come for his payment. Payment, what payment? I owe no one anything. I walked on quickly, and the lad came after me. I took you to the doctor's house. Not so long ago either. And you promised to pay. Then the boy reminded of the favor he did to them. You promised to pay. I took you to the doctor's house. Only then Rukmani remembered him. It is a boy with the impudent face who had guided us. But then the boy, small boy, continued to threaten the adult. If you do not, he continued threateningly, it will be the worse for you. I'm not used to being bilked. Bilked is cheated. I could not help smiling. This child spoke like a man using the words of a ruffian. Perhaps he was imitating the adults he has seen in the city every day. Right, so he spoke like a ruffian, imitating their speech. I would pay you if I could, I said placatingly. And Rukmani, of course, didn't chase him away, but said, I would pay you if I could, but I have nothing. Come and see for yourself if you do not believe me. So they are simple minded, innocent village people. And she did not scare the boy away, but sincerely said that she doesn't have money. You come and see for yourself if you do not believe me. I do not, he said frankly. I will see for myself. And here is a small boy who has lost his faith in adults. He does not believe in adults. And he does not think that they are good, kind, benevolent, helping, and frank. Right? He openly said that he does not believe adults. I do not. I will see for myself. So he wanted to go and see for himself. I hurried on and he came after, dogging my footsteps in a suspicious silence. And still the boy didn't trust Rukmani. Right, and dogging my footsteps, that is following continuously because he is suspicious of this adult. And Nathan came running to meet me. Where on earth have you been? The food has all gone. Luckily today I was able to get near. Otherwise we should have starved. And that day Nathan is successful. And he managed to get a portion of rice that day. Blame this lad, I said. He would stop and argue. Nathan peered at Puli. Who is he? What does he want of you? Before I could reply, the boy advanced. I want payment. That's what I want. And he said truculently, I shall see that I get it. Payment, what for? asked Nadan, bewildered. He too had forgotten. He guided us to the doctor's house. I explained when we first came. There was a pause. And look at what Nadan did upon hearing this. Nadan began sharing out the rice and dal. Carefully tearing the plant and leaf, he carried into three pieces on which to put each portion. I had, with the day's earnings, bought as usual one rice cake, which I now broke to hand round. The boy stared at it. You must have money. Otherwise, how could you buy rice cakes? I sighed. I earn 2 annas a day by writing letters, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. I buy food with it, which is not unreasonable. Nathan said impatiently, seeing how one portion has sometimes to be stretched to three. Right. So there we find several issues. So we find destitution of these people, Nadan, Rukmani, and Puli, and also how honest these people are, and honest and kind. And Nadan also did not chase away Puli, but this is his kind of payment. And we know they don't have money to pay him, but this is the only way, right? They have rice now, so this is the only way they can pay Puli. And then that portion is enough only for one person, but he now divides that among three people. And the boy stared at it. And then Rukmani revealed that she earns only 2 annas, sometimes more, sometimes a little less. And then Nadan said that that is not unreasonable, because sometimes that you can share one portion among three people. At last, Puli seemed satisfied. No doubt this experience may have surprised Puli. He started to eat, and once more I saw that he had no fingers, only stumps. And we know that he is a leper, and he does not have the top parts of his fingers. He has only stumps. He himself did not appear to find any difficulty in managing without, except that once or twice he had to use both hands. And there was a certain awkwardness in his handling of the food. Despite myself, I could not keep my eyes off his hands. The harder I tried to keep my gaze fixed elsewhere, the more it fastened itself to these stumps. Puli, seemingly unaware, continued eating stolidly. He's used to it, I thought. He knows and accepts the shameful, probing curiosities of human beings. When we had eaten and fed the leaves to the goats and washed, Puli, to my surprise, lay down beside us. Right? So in this section, we find how Rukmani stared at the way Puli managed his food. Right? So that was very difficult at times, but still, uh, he managed to eat his food as well as the others, even though it was somewhat awkward. And then Puli, after eating, did not want to leave, and he lay down beside them. You had better go home, I said, nudging him. What will your poor mother think if you stay here all night? I have no mother, poor otherwise, he said. There is no one to worry about me and none to worry me either, which is a good thing. And turning on his side, he fell instantly asleep. Right, so he's a boy without a family, an orphan boy. Right, he says he has no mother, no relations, no one, a street child, an orphan. And then he is not concerned about it, he is not worried about it. Right, he only says that there is no one to worry about me and none to worry me either. It is good. And then he fell instantly asleep. I might have felt apprehensive for him. Apprehensive is concerned. But that I knew him to be eminently capable of looking after himself. And he has proved it that he is able to look after himself well in the city. He knows survival tricks and he can even help others. Oh, sorry, save that he so patently did not desire it. But I could not help feeling a vague responsibility which certainly I knew I was in no position to fulfill. So her maternal instincts started to stir in her heart. And we know Rukmani is a real mother. She's a motherly woman who loves children so much. And now she feels maternal towards this orphan boy. But she knew that she was in no position to fulfill it, fulfill a sense of responsibility. She started to feel towards a child. Is probably better fitted to fend for himself than we are. Nadan began. But although he was echoing my thoughts, I found myself turning on him indignantly. How can you say such a thing? He's only a child, no more than 9 or 10. And he is not whole either, as we are. And they are, that they can understand each other's thoughts even. And Nadan may have sensed Rukmani's thoughts, and he responded openly. That is, he is probably better fitted to fend for himself than we are. Don't worry about him. He can take care of himself. And then Rukmani actually didn't want to sound like that. And she said, how can you say such a thing? He is only a child. And then he is not healthy. But that he was right. Fully demonstrated the next morning. When we woke, we found him sitting cross legged beside us, frowning thoughtfully. Even though he's a small boy, he behaves like an adult, matured person. And next morning, they found the police sitting beside them, sitting cross legged beside them. That is the Indian way. And he started cross examining Rukmani. You earn 2 annas. After working all day, I nodded, sometimes 3 or 4. Then he made exact calculations between 2 and 4 then. He amended impatiently. Have you no wish to earn more? I stared at him. If only I could, I said half breathless. Is there some way? There's a stone quarry, he said. Not far from here. Stone breakers earn good wages. Can you underline? There's a stone quarry. Stone breakers earn good wages. So this is manual metal crushing, breaking stones. But Nadan is deterred, right? And Who will employ us? Said Nadan sadly. At our age, such heavy work would in even be beyond us. So Nadan is looking at the negative side of this. That is, we are too old to work. Who will employ us? And it is tiresome work. Age doesn't matter, the boy said impatiently. As for who will employ you, there is no such thing. Anyone can go and work and be paid by the results. So much for each sackful. Are we not beyond such labor? Indeed, no. All kinds work in the quarry. Men, women, and children. I would work too, he added. But I cannot hold a hammer or stone firmly enough. One can earn a lot if one works quickly. And he explained why he can't work there because of the state of his fingers. He cannot have a firm grip, so he cannot do it. Lead on, Nadan said. We are in your hands. Now the adults rely on the child. Usually the vice versa happens because children usually rely on adults. But here we find the opposite situation, the vice versa. And adults are in the child's hands. You can write there, adults are forced to depend on the child. Adults are forced to depend on the child. Okay, right. So next we find how they went to the quarry, and they can hear the noise of the stone breakers and also dull explosions. So the sound sound of explosions and then sound of activities grew louder as they approached the stone quarry. Right, so that is a noisy place. So they had to shout to make themselves heard. The quarry was on a hillside, not the calm and pleasant Chamundi hill, but another lesser hill, bare and rocky, with here and there a few clumps of prickly pear. Right, so we find the contrast between calm and pleasant and rich Chamundi hill, and that is a place where the collector lives. And this is situated close by, right, on another lesser hill, less important hill, and it's not a pleasant place, bare and rocky, full of stones. Right. And then on one side of the hill, one can see the actual quarry, the huge stone. An enormous irregular crater strewn with boulders and lined with jagged rocks. Its sides pitted with holes of varying size. So there were people everywhere. There are some working the quarry itself, and there are some others scattered about the hillside. The heftier, that is stronger among the men, splitting boulders. The women and children chipping fragments off the larger stones. Movement everywhere, a myriad arms, rising and falling hands, flailing, backs bending and straightening in a relentless rhythm. So this is a sight of breaking stones. At intervals, I observed a red flag being hoisted, that is indicative of danger. That is, during an explosion, this signal is there. It conveys that there is a danger. But these village folks didn't know it, which seemed to be some sort of danger signal, but those working in the vicinity immediately dispersed to wait at a safe distance. A shrill whistle also blew as a warning to those who had not seen or who had disregarded the red flag. And within a few seconds followed the explosions we had heard when approaching the quarry. And Puli explained, the sheet rock is blasted by gunpowder. The municipality sends special men to do that. But the other work can be done by anyone. And this is a special job. But the other work can be done by anyone. So it seemed there were all ages and sizes here. And then they were at a loss how to begin, where to begin from. And Puli ordered, begin here. And then he thinks that this place is better because some way from the quarry, right? Most of the blasting is done, and you won't have to run so often. And after that, he sat himself down, keeping a watchful eye on us, keeping a watchful eye on them. Perhaps now he feels responsible for them. I have never done this kind of work before. I said, uncertainly, I hardly know. Oh, it's quite simple. You merely hammer the stones until they break. The the only thing is you must get them the right size. See that pile there? He pointed to a heap of stones, most of which were about the size of a child faced. Try and get them like that. And that was a difficulty, Rukmani admits to herself. That was precisely the difficulty. That is to maintain that standard size. That is a difficulty. To break the stones to the required size. Sometimes they were too big, sometimes too small. We struck lightly and only chips glanced off the stone. We struck hard and it fell to fragments. The air was full of flying dust and stone particles. Part of the trouble lay in keeping one's eyes open while striking. And the Rukmani said that this is not a simple way of earning. It is more difficult than it looks. And then Nadan grumbled of not having proper equipment like a proper hammer. And at the same time, Rukmani was able to see that there were so many like them without any equipment, without hammers. And they too are using stones, who are making very good progress. No, yet there were many like us without hammers and using only stones, who were making very good progress. Once or twice I stopped to watch, admiring and envious, while the stones broke obediently to the right size under their skillful blows, and the knobbly heaps from them grew. Only once were we disturbed by blasting near us. Once there was an explosion, right? And so they were engrossed in their work and then failed to notice a red flag. And then they were unable to detect the whistle sound. But Puli was always vigilant, heard it, and then hustled them to safety. And as we ran, we felt the ground shake beneath us. And then Puli reprimanded them. You must learn to be careful, Puli said severely, while stones and earth still rained down on us like hailstones. Did you not hear the whistle or the people who shouted to you? This blasting is a nuisance, he went on. You will find your stones are scattered, but you will get used to it. Right. So that was a close shave, right? So they were going to, going to get some injuries, but was prevented by pulley. Okay. And then Rukmani also noticed the way the stones are now, they are scattered, mixed, and a person said sometimes one loses, sometimes one gains. It evens itself out in a philosophic manner. I was thankful there was this spirit of amity. We were neither of us anxious to engage in futile disputes. And next we find the severity of uh, the sunlight. Sun was setting before we finished. So it is very uncomfortable. And then Rukmani still does not know the procedure there. So she turned to the little boy. Well, what now? Who pays us? We must get a sack first, he replied. Your husband had better wait here while we are gone. Come, I will show you the overseer's hut. So next we find, Rukmani is following him, and then what she noticed about that landscape. The hillside was full of moving people, some carrying laden sacks, others with wicker baskets on their shoulders which creaked with the weight of the stones, some of which tumbled from the holes in the loosely woven wicker. So next we find how Rukmani was being paid, and how she was guided by others who were ready to help. And then while she was standing in the line, Puli was doing something. And from somewhere he had produced a begging bowl, which he held in the crook of his elbow, while he displayed his mutilated hands to the passers-by. He had altered his voice, I noticed, making it weak and quavery while he uttered his sing-song play. Take pity on an orphan child, take pity. Right, so he started to beg. And Rukmani thought that he had come to a wrong place because there are very poor people in the line, so you are begging from them. So Rukmani thought that he want get even a very small amount of money like some annas. Wrong place, I thought. Only the poor come here. But to my astonishment, I saw one or two had dropped pies into his bowl. Soon he was able to rattle it, thus attracting even more attention. Right, and then Rukmani also noticed that some kind people gave him some money, even though they themselves are very poor. And then line was moving very slowly. Right. So there we find how they conversed with each other. And then finally we come to this place, right? How Rukmani was being paid by the overseer. So her turn came, and then he, in a business-like manner, he asked how many. One only. He entered something in a book and reached for some coins. Then he looked up. Where is your sack? I have not got one. I've just come for it. And then he was cross and said, why did you not ask for it in the first place? Are you trying to get money for nothing? And then Rukmani had to get a basket from those stuck behind him. Here you are, no sacks left and hurry up, else you won't be paid tonight. And then Rukmani was taking it now, filling it and taking it, and running back to Nadan. And then Overseer said, one sack, 8 annas. Now they are behind with the others. Right. And then Rukmani managed to get 8 annas. Right. And then Nadan was waiting, impatient, and he too came to know that they have earned 8 annas and they were very happy now. And the first thing Nadan said is that we shall soon be home. Think of it. Now they are dreaming about going back to the village. That is their intention. It seemed natural that we should wait for Puli. And sure enough, he joined us a few minutes later. You can mark this. The boy had attached himself to us of his own accord, and now both of us took it for granted he would remain. And so from that moment, Puli has come to stay with them. And he didn't want to go back to his pack. And then Rukmani then confronted him and said, how did you fare? I saw you were busy. Not at all, he replied dolefully, holding out one anna. That's all I got for my pains. I myself had heard rattling of many more coins, and apparently so had Nadan. You must be very clever, he said dryly, to make so much clatter with only one coin. Because both of them heard many coins in his begging bowl, and now he says that he managed to earn only one anna. And now then sarcastically said that then you must be very clever because with that one coin you make such a noise. There was a silence, but then Puli recovered himself. Ah, that true. There were other coins, but they were pies. I have exchanged them for this one anna, he said. He was an artful child in many ways, and more than a match for us. Can you mark this? And Rukmani thinks that he is very artful, that he is clever. One, right, and then more than a match for us, smarter than adults. Clever and smarter than adults. Right, so next we find now this has become a set pattern, right? Like each day, fully accompanying them to the quarry, usually remaining with us while we worked and always returning with us to the temple. He has become attached to them now, perhaps realizing that they are different from others in the city, and he attached himself to this old couple. Right, so they are going to the quarry with Puli. Whatever we earned, we entrusted to him. The theft of the money from my sari while I slept had undermined not only my confidence but Nadan's. Besides, Puli was manifestly more capable of caring for it than we were. So next we find, how they eagerly calculated their collection, and then they made some plans as well. If we earn 8 annas each day and contrive to live on 4, we could save the money we needed to return in 40 days. At any rate, within 2 months, said Nathan, allowing for everything. Right, so Nathan thought that within 2 months they will be able to return to the village. What of you? Will you come with us? The boy stared. The thought of leaving the city seemed to shock him. He shook his head. No, I do not want to go to your village. Right, so they want to take Puli back to the village. When they go back to the village, they want to take Puli with them. But he flatly refused it, saying, no, I do not want to go to your village. And then Nadan wanted to tempt him. It is much nicer than here, more peaceful with green fields and open air. And when the paddy is ripe, such a sight as you have never seen. And this is the pride of the farmer, ripening of the paddy. And what would I do there, said Puli, contemptuously, in these green fields of yours I know nothing about. What is more, they are not even yours. Do you want me to starve with you? And then Puli is such a practical person. And he pointed out that he would be useless in the village because he can't work, he can't hold anything. And also he remembered that they said their land was taken away. And his question is, do you want me to starve with you? You are right. Nathan said sadly, we have nothing to offer you. And he is very honest and said that you are right. We have nothing to give you. I do not know why you want to return. You have told me yourself you have no land. What will you live on? The others did not know. We had left because we had nothing to live on. And if we went back, it was only because there was nothing here either. We ate once a day and that was all. When the day came for buying clothes to cover ourselves with, for a mat to lie on, medicines for another while he fevered, there would be nothing. You are too young to understand, said Nadan. This is not my home. I can never live here. Yet you came. I came because I was forced and believing my son lived here. Now he has gone none knows where. I must return to my youngest son. He will somehow support us. Right, so Nadan explains why he came to the city, even though he was not tired of the village and he was forced out of it, and he believed that his son is in the city, but then he has gone from the city, from collector's house. Right, so He thinks that he should return to his youngest son. He will somehow support us. So that is their faith in Selvam. They think that somehow he will support them. I sure, said the ruthless child. Now sometimes his cross-examining is very harsh, unpleasant, and it hurts too. You're too old to keep traveling up and down. At least, said Nadan, I shall be where I was born and bred. The city is no place for me, and I'm lost in it. And I'm too old to learn to like it. He changed the subject. How will you fare when we go? Nadan firmly said that this is not his place. And this is not the place where he was born and raised. Okay. And he admits that he is too old, and then too old to learn to like it, like the city. Then he changed the uh, subject to him. How will you fare when we go? As I did before you came. And Puli is not emotional, and he said indifferently, as before you came, I lived in a certain way, and I'm going to continue it. We did not try to dissuade him, although the thought of going without him was saddening. This is saddening. Yeah, G should be there. In the short time he had spent with us, we had come to be curiously dependent on the boy. So the adults started to be dependent on the boy, respecting his independent spirit as much as his considerable knowledge of the city. So you can mark these things. That is, the boy is independent, and adults are dependent on the boy, and they respect his independent spirit, his knowledge of the city, knowledge of many kinds of people. Yet I thought what I did not wish to think of the time when the disease that had claimed his fingers would creep up, eating away his limbs, or attack some other part, his feet or his eyes. What then of this bright, fearless child who boasted that he stood alone? You can underline this. There is a limit to the achievements of human courage. So that's it. That was chapter 27. In chapter 27, we learned about uh, their feelings after realizing that they are stranded in the city. Though they wanted to go back to the village, now they don't have any money for their travel fare. So they are trapped in the city. And then Rukmani started to think about how they are going to survive in the city, and then still collect some money to go back to the village. And then she realized that they are useless in the city because her husband's skills are valueless in the city where there are no fields. And then in her case also, she finds that she cannot weave anything because she doesn't have the material needed. And to buy the material also, one has to spend some money which they don't have. And then a new thought occurred to her, that is setting herself up as a reader and writer of letters. And even though Nadan found this idea strange, uh, but they had to, Rukmani had to do it. And also we find how society laughed at her, ridiculed her, mocked her, and made some indecent remarks, but still she tolerated all these things and then continued to do her job of reading and writing letters. And after that, in this chapter, we find the next important, important incident, that is police coming back demanding for payment for the for what he did, for the good turn he did, like taking them to Dr. Birla's place. And then Rukmani said that she didn't have money, but he wouldn't believe. So here is a boy who has lost faith in adults. And she took him to Nadan, and then by that time, Nadan managed to take a portion of rice. And here in the story, he started to divide the portion into three parts, and three of them shared the meal, and that surprised Puli. And after eating, Puli slept close to them. And hereafter, Puli never mentioned that he wanted to go back. After that, we find, police are taking them to a stone quarry, and then by working as a reader and writer of letters the whole day, she could only earn like 2 annas. But after the very first day at the quarry, they managed to earn 8 annas. So we find how Bully led them to the quarry, and then, right, they also became optimistic, and how Bully saved them from danger and always having a watchful eye upon them. So finally, we find they are summoning Puli to go with them to the village, but then Puli is somewhat reluctant. Okay, so that's all we can do for today. Let's meet again in a recording like this.